when a man on a motorcycle coming around the curve on Route 60 just east of Gauley Bridge, West Virginia at 7:15 on a Monday morning, saw a boy walking along the highway shoulder, backpack on, head down, walking steady, he almost passed him. Kids walk to school. It happens in rural West Virginia where the bus doesn't run every hollow. But then the morning sun hit the pavement at an angle and the man saw the boy's feet, bare feet, on asphalt, in March. The boy was walking barefoot on the shoulder of a state highway at 7:15 in the morning, and it was 38 degrees, and his feet were red, and he was walking like it hurt with every step, but he hadn't stopped. The man pulled over, killed the engine, walked to the boy. "Hey buddy, where are your shoes?" The boy didn't stop walking. He kept going, eyes forward, bare feet on gravel. "I don't have shoes today." "You don't have shoes?" "She hid them. She hides them when she's mad. If I can't find them by 7, I walk without them. School starts at 8. It's 3 miles. I can't be late again. I got a warning last week for tardies, and if I get one more, they call home. And if they call home, she gets worse. So I walk. With or without shoes." A 10-year-old boy walking barefoot on a highway in March because his stepmother hid his shoes as punishment, and being late to school would make the punishment worse. The shoes weren't lost, they were leverage, and the highway was the price of keeping the peace. Route 60 ran through Fayette County like a spine. 2 lanes, no sidewalk, narrow shoulders, trucks doing 50. The stretch east of Gauley Bridge was especially bad. Curves, guardrails, a drop to the river on one side. Not a road for walking, definitely not a road for bare feet. The boy was on the right shoulder, walking against traffic, which meant someone had taught him road safety, even if nobody had given him shoes. Boone Ratliff was on that road because he was heading to a job site in Ansted. He was 41 years old, 6 feet 1 inch, 258 pounds, with a dark beard and hands that had been running chainsaws and skidders for 18 years. Timber, logging, the kind of work where you start before dawn and finish after your back tells you to stop. He was Sergeant-at-Arms of the Gauley Mountain MC, a 9-member club based out of Gauley Bridge that met at a garage on Main Street and rode the mountain roads when the loggers weren't on them. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels and hit that notification bell, because this story starts with bare feet on asphalt in March and a man who pulled over when everyone else drove past. Boone walked next to the boy. The boy kept walking. His feet were red-pink on the soles, raw from the gravel, not broken, but close. The cold had done the rest. The skin was tight and the toes were curled under slightly, the body's way of protecting what it can when it can't protect everything. He was walking on the balls of his feet, avoiding heel strikes, the way someone walks on hot sand, except this wasn't hot. This was 38 degrees, and the asphalt was stealing heat from his body through the soles of his feet, and he'd been doing it for a mile, and he had 2 more to go. Doesn't that hurt? The first 5 minutes are the worst. After that, it goes numb. The numb is good. The numb means I can walk faster. The problem is after, when I get to school and my feet warm up in the building, that's when it hurts. The thawing is worse than the cold. My feet tingle and burn, and it takes about 20 minutes for them to feel normal. I do it in the bathroom. I run warm water over them in the sink, and I dry them with paper towels, and I put on my gym shoes. I keep those in my locker, she doesn't know about those, and I go to first period. Nobody sees the bare feet. The gym shoes cover the evidence. You keep backup shoes at school? I figured that out after the second time. I asked my friend Brandon if he had any old shoes, and he gave me a pair of gym shoes his mom was going to throw out. They're a size too big, but they work. I keep them in my locker. She doesn't know they exist. If she knew, she'd find a way to get rid of them. So the locker is safe. School is the only place she can't reach. What's your name? Ellis. Ellis Greer. Ellis, I'm Boone. How far have you walked? About a mile. Started at 7. I'm on pace if I don't stop. On pace? I timed it last time. 3 miles at a fast walk is about 45 minutes. If I leave at 7, I'm at school by 7:45. Bell rings at 8. That gives me 15 minutes to wash my feet in the bathroom before first period so nobody sees. You've done this before. 4 times. This is the 5th. She hides them when I do something wrong. Last time it was because I left the light on in the bathroom. Time before that, I didn't take the trash out fast enough. Before that, I talked back. I didn't talk back. I asked a question, but she calls questions talking back. Before that, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. The reason changes. The shoes disappear. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Asphalt Angels. Because a 10-year-old boy had walked barefoot to school 5 times because asking a question was talking back, and a bathroom light was a crime, and shoes were the sentence. Where does she hide them? Different place every time. First time it was the trunk of her car. Second time it was the top shelf of the hall closet. I couldn't reach it. Third time she took them to work with her. Fourth time, the worst one, she threw them in the outside trash can, and I had to dig them out after school. They smelled like garbage for a week. This time, I don't know where they are. I looked everywhere before I left. Under beds, in closets, in the garage, in the dryer. I couldn't find them, so I'm walking. Why don't you tell your dad? My dad's a trucker. He's OTR, over the road. Gone 2 weeks, home 3 days. When he's home, she's perfect. The shoes are in the closet. Dinner's on the table. The house is calm. When he leaves, the house changes. It's like she runs a different house depending on who's watching. Dad's house is fine. Her house is the shoes. Does your dad know about the walking? He knows I walk to school. He doesn't know I walk barefoot. I told him the bus doesn't come to our road, which is true, it doesn't. And he said walking was good exercise. He doesn't know the exercise comes with missing shoes. I don't tell him because when he's home she's nice, and if I tell him she'll deny it, and it'll be my word against hers, and she's really good at making things sound reasonable. She'll say, Ellis misplaces his shoes. She'll say, he's careless. And Dad will believe it, because Dad wants to believe his wife is good to his kid, and believing is easier than investigating. If you're watching this story, hit that hype button right now. It's free, takes 1 second, and helps these stories reach the people who need them. Now, back to the story. Ellis, get on the bike. I can't. I'll be late. I'm driving you to school. You'll be early. Ellis looked at the motorcycle, looked at his feet, looked at the road ahead. 2 more miles of asphalt and gravel and 38-degree air. He made the calculation kids like him always make. Which risk is worse? Riding with a stranger or walking 2 more miles barefoot? Will you drop me at the corner? Not at the front. I don't want anyone to see me get off a motorcycle. Why? Because then they'll ask why I wasn't on the bus, and I'll have to explain the feet, and explaining the feet means explaining the shoes, and explaining the shoes means explaining her, and I'm not ready for that. I'll drop you at the corner. Boone took off his boots, size 12 Red Wings, worn to the shape of his feet, the leather soft from years of sawdust and rain. He set them on the ground in front of Ellis. Put these on for the ride. They're too big, but they'll keep your feet off the pegs. Ellis stepped into the boots. They swallowed his feet. He looked like a kid wearing his dad's shoes, which, in a way, he was. The boots of a man who was present when his father wasn't. They rode to the school. Boone dropped him at the corner of Beach Street, a block from the entrance. Ellis pulled off the boots and handed them back, and stood on the sidewalk barefoot again. Thank you. Ellis, I'm going to make a phone call. The boy's face changed. Not fear, resignation. The face of a kid who knew this moment was coming and had calculated the cost. If you call, she'll know, and it'll get worse before it gets better. It's already worse. You're barefoot on a highway in March. I know, but worse for me, I can handle. Worse for the house, that's different. When someone calls, the house gets quiet. The bad quiet. The quiet where she doesn't yell, but she doesn't speak. And the not speaking is worse than the yelling, because at least when she yells, I know what I did. When she's quiet, I have to figure it out myself. That's not your job. Everything in that house is my job. Boone called 911 from the corner. This is Boone Ratliff. I'm at Beach Street near Gauley Bridge Elementary. I picked up a 10-year-old boy named Ellis Greer walking barefoot on Route 60 this morning. 38 degrees. His stepmother hides his shoes as punishment. This is the 5th time. The boy's been walking 3 miles barefoot on a state highway to avoid being late to school. His father is an OTR trucker, currently on the road. Home address is, he looked at Ellis, 276 Panther Creek Road. 276 Panther Creek Road, Gauley Bridge area. I need CPS and a deputy at that address. He texted the Gauley Mountain MC group chat. Gauley Bridge Elementary. Found a 10-year-old walking Route 60 barefoot, 38 degrees. Stepmom hides his shoes when he misbehaves. 5th time. Kid walked 3 miles on the highway. Need brothers. If Asphalt Angels has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. Just a couple bucks a month keeps these stories coming. Links below. Now, back to the ending. 3 brothers arrived. Pence, Adkins, and Runyon. Pence was a heavy equipment operator who drove straight from the shop with dirt still on his boots. Adkins was a welder who brought a pair of his kids' old sneakers, size 5, close enough, and handed them to Ellis without a word. Ellis put them on. They fit. He looked down at his feet in shoes, and his whole body relaxed. Not dramatically, not a breakdown, just a quiet release, like a fist unclenching. Shoes, the most basic thing. And it changed his posture. His shoulders dropped. His stride lengthened. He went from walking like the ground was dangerous to standing like the ground was his. Pence noticed. He's taller in shoes. He's not taller, Boone said. He's just not crouching anymore. Runyon, the quiet one, a faller who cut timber for a living and didn't say much, walked over to Ellis and said, "Those fit okay?" "They fit. Good." And he walked back to his truck. That was Runyon's whole contribution. Those fit okay? And good. Sometimes that's enough. The school principal, a man named Varney, came out when he saw the bikers in the lot. Boone explained. Varney's face went through 3 stages: confusion, then calculation, then anger. He said Ellis had 4 tardies this semester. He said he'd almost called home. He said if he'd called, the shoes would have disappeared again and the walk would have gotten worse. He said, "We nearly made it worse by following the policy." He went back inside and pulled Ellis's attendance record. 4 tardies, all on Mondays or Tuesdays, the days after weekends, the days Kendra had maximum time to escalate. The pattern was in the data. Nobody had read the data as a welfare flag. They'd read it as a behavior problem. A Fayette County deputy arrived, a woman named Holiday who'd been a school resource officer before moving to patrol. CPS caseworker Tina Bragg arrived from Fayetteville, a woman in her 40s who'd been doing child welfare in the county for 13 years. Tina went to 276 Panther Creek Road. She came back 50 minutes later. The stepmother, Kendra Greer, 35, was home. When I asked about the shoes, she said Ellis loses them. I asked where they were right now. She said she didn't know. I asked to search the house. She consented. The shoes, one pair of Nike sneakers, the child's only pair, were in a storage tote in the attic, inside a garbage bag, behind a box of Christmas decorations. She didn't lose them. She staged a hide. When I told her the child walked barefoot on Route 60 this morning, she said, "He could have stayed home." When I said he walked because he was afraid of getting another tardy, she said, "That's his choice." His choice. A 10-year-old's choice between bare feet on a highway and a phone call home. That's not a choice. That's a trap. The storage tote, the garbage bag, the attic, behind Christmas decorations. She'd hidden a child's only pair of shoes in a place a 10-year-old couldn't find them if he searched for an hour, and then she'd let him walk out the front door onto a highway in 38-degree weather, and she'd said nothing. She'd watched him leave barefoot. Or worse, she hadn't watched at all. She'd let the absence of shoes be its own lesson, and the highway be the classroom. Kendra Greer was charged with child neglect and child cruelty. The shoes were retrieved and returned to Ellis. But the shoes were evidence now. Tina photographed the tote, the garbage bag, the attic, the hiding spot behind the decorations, the architecture of the punishment. Ellis's father, Dan Greer, 39, was contacted on the road. He was in Indiana. He turned his rig around, 14 hours of driving. He arrived at midnight. When Tina showed him the photos, the attic, the tote, the garbage bag, his son's only shoes buried behind Christmas decorations, Dan sat at the kitchen table and put his head in his hands. "I'm gone 2 weeks at a time. And in those 2 weeks, your son walks to school barefoot. 5 times. 5 times, Mr. Greer, in March." Dan looked at the shoes on the table. Nike sneakers, size 5, the only pair. He picked one up and turned it over. The sole was worn smooth on the ball of the foot, the part that hits the asphalt when you walk 3 miles without cushion. He could see it, the evidence of the road in the rubber, his son's commute written in treadwear. "I'm done driving." Kendra was removed from the home. Dan took emergency family leave from his trucking company. He stayed home. For the first time in Ellis's life, his father was home for more than 3 days at a stretch. The first morning, Dan put Ellis's shoes by the front door, right by the door, where you see them, where nobody has to look. "Your shoes are right there." "I know. They'll be there every morning." "I know. I'm going to say it anyway. Your shoes are by the door, every morning. Nobody moves them. Nobody hides them. They're yours." Ellis put the shoes on. He tied them slowly, double-knotted, the way you tie something you don't want to lose. He walked to the front door. He looked at the porch, the driveway, the road. The road he'd walked 5 times without shoes. The same road, the same distance, but now with shoes, and with a dad standing behind him in the kitchen instead of in a truck in Indiana. "Dad? Yeah? Can you drive me today? Just today. Tomorrow I'll walk. But today, I want to ride." "I'll drive you every day." "You don't have to." "I know, but I'm going to." The Gauley Mountain MC started a program called By the Door, named for where shoes belong, by the front door, visible, accessible, not in an attic behind Christmas decorations. The program partnered with schools in Fayette County to track students who arrive without proper footwear, arrive with wet or damaged shoes, or arrive in shoes that don't fit. Not as a dress code issue, as a welfare check. The card read, "A child without shoes isn't forgetful. Check where the shoes went. Check who took them." 6 months later, Ellis was in 5th grade. He had 3 pairs of shoes now. Dan had bought them the first weekend, all 3 at once, because 1 pair could be hidden, but 3 pairs couldn't. That was Dan's logic, and it was the logic of a man who'd learned to think like a person who takes things. If you give a kid one pair, the shoes are a weapon. If you give a kid 3 pairs, one by the door, one in his room, one in his backpack, the shoes are just shoes. Dan also bought a pair of snow boots for winter and flip-flops for the house. 5 pairs total. Ellis said it was the most shoes he'd ever owned. He kept them in different places, distributed, like a kid who'd learned that concentration was vulnerability. His teacher, Ms. Webb, said Ellis was different now. Not the grades, those were always fine. The walking. He walked differently. He used to walk like he was protecting his feet even in shoes. Short steps. Careful, like the ground might hurt him. Now he walks normal. Long steps. He runs at recess. He didn't used to run. The feet had healed in a week. The walking took 6 months. Dan quit long-haul trucking. He took a job at a local quarry. Less money, regular hours, home every night. He said the pay cut was worth it. I was making good money on the road while my kid was walking a highway barefoot. The money wasn't good. It was just money. I was buying him things from truck stops, t-shirts, hats, a keychain from every state. I thought I was being a good dad because I brought gifts. I brought a keychain from Ohio while my wife was hiding his shoes in the attic. That's not a good dad. That's a dad who's not there. The first Monday after Dan started the quarry job, he drove Ellis to school. They pulled into the drop-off lane. Ellis had shoes on, 3 pairs at home, gym shoes in the locker. He was the most shoed kid in Fayette County, and it still felt new. Dad? Yeah? You're here on a Monday. I'm here every Monday. She was worst on Mondays. Mondays were always the hardest. I used to wake up on Monday, and the first thing I'd check was whether my shoes were still where I left them. If they were there, it was going to be an okay day. If they were gone, I had to start calculating. You don't have to calculate anymore. I know, but I still check. Every morning, first thing. I open my eyes and I look at the floor next to my bed, and I look for my shoes. They're always there. But I look. The counselor says I'll stop looking eventually. She says the checking is a habit, and habits fade. But right now, I look. Every morning. And every morning they're there. And every morning it still surprises me a little. Dan didn't say anything. He just reached over and put his hand on the back of his son's head, the way a father does when words aren't enough. And Ellis leaned into it for a second, and then got out of the truck and walked into school. In shoes. On a Monday. With his dad in the drop-off lane instead of in a truck in Indiana. Boone drove past Route 60 one morning. Same stretch, same curve. Nobody walking. Just road and guardrail and the river below. He thought about a boy's red feet on cold gravel and the way the morning sun had caught them and made him pull over. He thought about how close he came to driving past, how easy it would have been to think kids walk and keep going. He didn't keep going. That was the whole story. Be the one who pulls over when a kid is walking where no kid should be walking. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that shoes aren't just shoes, sometimes they're the leash, the punishment, and the proof, please share it. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels for more stories, proving that sometimes the most dangerous road a child walks isn't the highway. It's the one between the front door and a house that hides the things they need. Tell us in the comments, did you ever have to walk somewhere a kid shouldn't walk alone?